Today we're diving into a topic that's at the heart of the UAE's global reputation. How UAE supports business growth and why entrepreneurs, SMEs and multinational companies choose this country as their regional base. By way of introduction, I'm Aideen Hopkins. I'm the Operations Director and Co-owner at EER Middle East. And I'm delighted today to be joined by our Business Development Director, Brad Williams, who supports clients across mainland, free zone and offshore jurisdictions here in the UAE. Together, we'll explore business setup, regulations, expansion pathways, and what really makes the UAE one of the easiest and most competitive places to operate. So let's get started. So Brad, what makes the UAE such an attractive location for businesses looking to start, relocate or even expand here in the region?
Yeah, thanks Aideen, and thanks for having me here today. Obviously we're in DMCC and in the heart of Dubai where a lot of business happens. I've been in the region for 11 years total, so I've seen Dubai kind of expand and innovate and grow into what it is today. I think when we look back in history, we will see Dubai as the centre of the world at this period of time. At one point in time, it would have been London, New York, Cairo, Rome, Athens. But I think this period, 2010 onwards, 2025, Dubai really is the centre of the world. And obviously, geographically, we're very well placed, very well located. It connects Asia, Europe, and Africa. And the transport links are second to none, world-class airport facilities, can get you anywhere in the world. But when you're in Dubai, it's a very unique place in terms of very multicultural, very business-orientated, and obviously from a tax point of view, it has a favourable regime globally. But when people want to relocate in 2025, Dubai comes up very often. Obviously, the safety is renowned, very low crime rate, and through the period of COVID-19, we saw economic stability, and essentially a lot of businesses came through that unscathed compared to the rest of the world.
Okay, and certainly I think we see government efficiencies are great, very favourable towards business in that. With things like corporate tax, I know that was introduced, just recently, but I think businesses just got on with it.
Absolutely.
Obviously, we've no personal income tax, and you have a very strong infrastructure. Do you see that very much play into decisions to locate here?
Yeah, I think traditionally that was always the big incentive. Of course, you had certain jurisdictions where, especially corporates, were looking to tax domicile here because they were going to get a favourable regime. Obviously, even the 9% right now, it's still lower globally than most countries. So there's still that kind of pull. But on top of that, you've got the ability to live in a country where there's just so many options in terms of schools for children, housing, great places to live, your work-life balance, obviously being in a city that you can travel very, very easily, that you can, eat any cuisine that you can think of. You can find any kind of entertainment. I mean, you're talking about events, theme parks, just any facility, sports. Obviously, there isn't really much you can't find in Dubai and the UAE. So with that, I think in the last few years in particular, people just see it as that place where it's easy to live, easy to move, and they feel comfortable.
Yeah. And, moving to the UAE then, I mean, it offers a number of jurisdictions. So we have the mainland, we have numerous free zones. I think we're well up above 40 to 50 free zones here in the UAE, as well as a number of offshore jurisdictions. Could you maybe break down the differences for us, please, and how each might support business growth?
Sure. So in the mainland, it's basically onshore. You have 7 Emirates, United Arab Emirates, which is 7 devolved jurisdictions. They have their own authorities that can issue business licenses. Typically, you are looking at mainland businesses if you are contracting with government, if you're going to enter into a government tender, so anything around oil and gas, aviation, defence, and regulated industries, healthcare as well. Any physical business where you're going to invite customers in, so things like restaurants, gyms, salons, if that physical space is in the mainland, then again, you're going to be licensed by the mainland authority. And so key to note for people is, of course, if you're in Dubai, you're going to deal with Dubai Department of Economic Development, and like for like in Abu Dhabi and the Northern Emirates. So if you're opening like a chain of restaurants, you may need to be licensed by all 7 Emirates potentially.
Yeah.
There isn't just one business license to cover the country. The free zones then, as you said, they've evolved. 2001, JAFSA started. In 2025, there's around 46 free zones. So that has absolutely boomed. Obviously, the legislation has evolved. So they are not just offering now outbound services, but services that can provide business and products in the UAE mainland. But free zone is there for entrepreneurs. It's there for multinationals. It can do a number of different things. It really just depends on what service and product you're looking to offer. When it comes to the offshore jurisdictions or financial zones, as they're known here, you have Dubai International Financial Centre in Dubai, the IFC, and you have Abu Dhabi Global Markets in Abu Dhabi. The key differences for those two, especially for foreign nationals and investors, is that they have their own independent courts, which are English common law, and they have a great reputation. In both communities, there are a number of international law firms, large offshore banks, financial service providers. So they have a great reputation, and they offer alternative legal structures. So if you're looking to incorporate a foundation or an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which would then be used to hold assets or shares and protect the shareholders, they are the two go-to jurisdictions.
Okay. And, touching on that, often when we start speaking with them first, their first question is, where should we set up? They're very confused in terms of what jurisdiction is right for them. How do we advise? How would you advise the client what is best for them?
If only I had a dirham for every time I get asked that question. I'd be a very wealthy man. Well, look, it's bespoke to every client, and that's why we consult, and that's why we have that face-to-face time, because everyone is different. But it starts with understanding what is the purpose of the company they want to set up. Is it to offer a product or service? Is it for residency? Is it for holding shares? And that will typically dictate quite heavily which jurisdiction. But what's also key is if they're going to have customers, who are those customers? Are those customers outside the country? Are they in a particular emirate? Is it private sector or government? Is it B2B or B2C? And so the customer base can also dictate, as well as the place of sale. Again, as I said, if you're inviting someone into a physical space, a place of business, again, that geography is probably going to dictate how you're licensed.
Okay. Yeah. And maybe leading on to that then, I suppose, they'll decide on the jurisdiction depending on what it is they're doing. But, what steps must they also take in determining maybe what the right license is and what the right activity is? Because, again, there's hundreds and hundreds of activities to choose from. Some are regulated, non-regulated.
Yeah.
What should they be doing to make sure they do the right thing?
And obviously with technology, the activity lists are always evolving. There are some activities when I started that didn't exist. And customers, obviously, they're so fast-paced, they're so basically innovating what they can offer to the market that their activity is not even there yet. So in some cases, it is just trying to fit into that jurisdictional list. And obviously, we work with authorities. We go to the offices of the government, and we ask for their feedback before we give a sign-off to a client or recommendation. But look, in some ways it can be very simple. It's, what are you invoicing for? And whatever service is going on your invoice really should be reflected on your business license, if it's an operating company. And then once you select that activity, you will find out essentially what are the key considerations. Have I got to pay up any share capital? Can I be foreign owned? Does the general manager need any educational background? Typically in things like engineering, accounting, law, professional services, someone in the business has to show some substance and that they have had a career in that industry. So on the face of it, licensing can be quite simple, but when you dig in and you start interacting with regulators, obviously there is, can be a lot more to it. And that's where we come in and advise.
Okay, and you touched on it there, one question is, can I be foreign owned? And, there have been significant changes, particularly with mainland structures. Maybe you can tell our audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, the company's law changed 6-7 years ago now, and since that change, obviously, I'd say it was a great move from the UAE because foreign investment and foreign ownership has just made things a lot easier. People obviously feel a lot more comfortable that they have the full control and the full shareholding. Previously, and still in some areas of licensing, there was a need to structure a business 51% Emirati owned, majority shareholder, and only 49% to the foreign corporate or individual. I still see some legacy structures. Some people have kept that 51-49 in place because it's enabled them to open doors and have relationships and win business potentially. But obviously for new entrants, I'd say 90% of licenses are going to be 100% foreign owned, which is great because it just gives that comfort. However, industries such as civil defense, insurance, central bank, healthcare, in some cases manufacturing of certain products, there is still a need to have a local partner. And their shares can range from 1% to 51 to 100. We have structured businesses where actually the Emirati is 100% shareholder, and then you have to look at alternative agreements. So it's still out there, it still happens, but in most cases, 90%, maybe more, you can be foreign owned, which is great.
Okay. And, maybe can you touch as well on maybe the speed to market differences between jurisdictions? So, are there some that will have a lot more heavy in terms of requirements, deadlines, timelines, to turn it around and get that license issued so you can start earning money?
Yeah. It's always one of the key questions is just, how quickly can I get set up? And I think, again, part of the UAE evolving, the timelines generally have come down. So, where you're potentially looking at months, years gone by, we are probably more in the weeks category. But essentially, look, it's going to start with your structure. If you're going to own the shares as a natural person, as an individual, the documentation is going to be quite light. You're going to be looking at passport, proof of address for any kind of standard, low risk kind of company formation. Once you start adding layers to that and you cross jurisdictions, so you've got two foreign corporates, let's say one from the US, one from Spain, then you've got to look at legalizing documents. And then your timeline is dictated by the embassies actually in those countries. So that's your starting place, is documentation. With documentation in place, unregulated companies, I'd say, look, mainland will be a little bit, potentially a little bit longer just because you're a free agent when it comes to the real estate with a commercial address. Some clients will take some time to select their office and find a preferred site, whereas the free zone kind of narrow that down for you, and they kind of give you those in-house options, anything from a shared working space to your own bespoke office. So usually free zone is a little bit quicker, but my experience, it's the big question is how you're going to hold the shares, and then that will dictate your documentation, and getting that in place is key.
Okay, and maybe leading on from that then, of course, there's the compliance, there's the regulation, which I'm very fond of.
My favourite topic.
Absolutely my favourite topic. But, how does the UAE balance business being business friendly, but at the same time making sure it maintains those rigorous compliance requirements?
Yeah, and look, it's a big part of, again, I could say that, the UAE, since it came off the grey list about 18 months, 2 years ago, I've seen another wave of investment because it just builds that confidence in the international community. And really, look, jurisdictions like ADGM and DIFC have flagship that movement. Their KYC and onboarding requirements are, world class and what you'd expect to see in any reputable jurisdiction. Essentially, look, if you're a low risk client, it can be very, very basic. Everyone should expect they're going to have to submit their passport and a proof of address. Again, if you've got a corporate structure, company's law, a UBO is 25% shareholder or more. So in some cases, PLCs get an easier time. If you've got 4 shareholders with over 25% shares, of course you're going to go through 4 sets of screening. So again, your structure will really dictate that kind of process. But essentially, as long as we can identify the UBO, and that UBO is deemed low risk, it's pretty smooth. Onboarding KYC, again, it's built into our timelines. You're talking about days rather than weeks or months.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah. And, at EER Middle East, I mean, how do we support clients in staying compliant, throughout the year and not maybe just at the point of setup?
Yeah. Well, the good thing for us, we cover so many jurisdictions and they are all different, even the UAE, even the free zone. So before we, look to structure a business or open a new company, we're aware of the mandatory compliance, what we call key considerations. So what does our business need to do every year to remain compliant? And our guarantee is that as your corporate services provider, you would avoid any fines, blocks and penalties. You want to continue your operation without having to worry. So typically for a UAE company, right now you're looking at, post-formation, corporate tax registration, VAT registration, and an annual license renewal. They are the kind of key three filings in your first year. And then year two, you're looking at submitting an audited financial statement. For most businesses, that will be sufficient. Again, if you're regulated, if you've got special activities, and obviously the more people you hire, the more compliance there is to think about. Every visa, every employee will come with its own set of compliance with labour law.
Okay. And, you talked earlier about, the process getting set up and all of that, and it's now no longer months, it's weeks to get set up. But now it comes to banking, and, that can be a very hot topic and certainly can be very challenging, especially for new businesses, getting that bank account set up. So, what should clients expect when opening a corporate bank account, here in the UAE?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's about 26 banks that are regulated by UAE Central Bank, so seen as UAE local banks. The good news is that there is an option with WeoBank. They're a fully fledged digital bank, been operating for a couple of years. I remember opening the first account with them, and in fairness, they kind of, their USP was fast opening. So it was very appealing here because certainly last few years, I think apart from the UAE asking for more documentation, more compliance, more AML, and the banks following that, and that adding, to time, what people don't realize is that there's so many companies opening here. There is a massive invisible queue that you can't see. If you go into a branch of a bank, they introduce you to the corporate team, they ask you to fill out a form and start the application, but there could be potentially hundreds in front of you. Some weeks in the UAE, there's 1,000 companies more registered. Yeah. So a lot of it is just volume. But with WEO, again, if you're an individual shareholder, entrepreneur, starting up, I mean, you can open your bank in a couple of days. So that's a great win. If you're corporate, I'd say best will in the world, you're looking at a month minimum, depending on your structure, depending on who you bank with. It could be multiple months. So,
and I suppose, why is understanding, let's say, the business model and the source of funds, that's super important when it comes to opening the bank account?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the bank's expecting transparency, and if you can just give those kind of key details early on, and it's clear, again, you're going to be probably expedited through the process. On top of that, the bank will always ask you for projected annual turnover and minimum operating balance. They're the two key figures. Yeah. So I'd say if you can build that into your business plan, and in the case of the minimum operating balance, the higher that is, it does open doors. So it's something to consider. So good for large corporates, they've got the budget to build that into a business plan, and that's probably their route to navigate as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I think, like, as you had alluded to earlier as well, that just as, EER Middle East, as a corporate service provider, we need to know who the UBO is. It's exactly the same with
Exactly.
the bank, and they're going to go through the same process in getting
absolutely.
that account up.
I mean, that's the thing. If you've got all your documents in order, you're probably going to be submitting it 2-3 times, one to your corporate service provider, EER Middle East, one will submit on behalf to the jurisdiction, and then the same pack of documents to the bank. So there isn't really anything over and above. But, if it's in order, fingers crossed, 1 or 2 months. Yeah.
Okay. And, the UAE, I think it's unique when businesses, often looking to expand across Emirates or, from free zones onto the mainland and that. How can we help clients scale into multiple jurisdictions?
Yeah, great question. Look, obviously, for us, it's having that knowledge and, we can advise, we can do feasibility studies, we can work with a jurisdiction and we can go back to a client and just give them the options. It makes it very clear because it can be confusing. There are very few countries, I think, that have, 60 plus jurisdictions. So that's why I think a lot of the times, people, investors, entrepreneurs can be confused with the UAE. But obviously, with the offering from your ADGM, your DIFC, your special purpose vehicles, that gives you a nice structure to, again, protect the shareholders, make an investment, and then branch into multiple jurisdictions, whether that's in the UAE, free zone mainland, or whether that's across the GCC, KSA, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman. And we see more and more clients doing that globally, where they've gone to, let's say, legacy offshore jurisdictions, your BVI, your Cayman, your Cyprus, your Panama. There's a lot of migration now to ADGM and DIFC, and people are using it to hold global assets, global shares, not just local. And that's just testament to the reputation and the ease of doing business in the UAE.
And even if they're looking to expand within the UAE, let's say they're in a free zone and now they want to be mainland as well, are there any barriers or licensing adjustments that are needed to be able to do that?
Well, you have the dual license in some cases, which makes it even easier for a client. I mean, they're looking then at kind of one fee, one set of documents, one process rather than multiple. But in some cases, it's the client likes to separate their customers. If they've got a big customer base, they want to invoice their free zone clients from their free zone business, and vice versa with the mainland. Locally speaking, to open branches, whether it's mainland free zone, again, you're talking about a couple of weeks. The licensing authorities are very used to seeing those structures. So, if you have that query, if that comes up, you can move very quickly.
Okay. And, company setup is really just the beginning. What ongoing services do companies need, in order to be able to operate smoothly and compliantly?
Yeah, well, I think, like most jurisdictions, knowing a good accountant, bookkeeping, having your reporting in place, obviously good habits from day one, it makes it easier in the long run. And obviously, if you ever come to sell a business or you restructure, it's always good to have those audits in place. Obviously, your compliance, legislation changes so quickly here. Just being aware of what you need to do at the time is key. I meet clients every day that get caught out, and usually come to us when we need to then unwind something that's gone wrong. So having that knowledge and that ear to the ground of what's happening in the local legislation that's changing, that's going to come up. Obviously, labour, hiring of employees, every visa, every employee, it's its own process. You've got, the offer letter, the employment contract, you've got the visa processing, you've got the medical insurance, and then you've got your own internal company onboarding. Obviously that's key to success. Any business that's going to scale up and hire people, I would say, that's a key focus area, planning your recruitment. Where are the staff coming from? Are they coming in the country? Are they coming from outside the country? Those are key things to think about before you plan the business.
And I think some other kind of compliance requirements as well. I mean, up until I think it's 2 years ago, we had to do the ESR and proof substance, but that's no longer a requirement. So that's a relief for everybody.
Yeah.
But things like the UBO updates, they're something that are required as well. And what exactly is that?
Yeah, well, a lot of people forget about it, and they may get some legal advice or tax advice, and they restructure the business, and they don't necessarily look locally within the UAE, the jurisdiction. So essentially, you need to declare your UBO on an annual basis. So if there is a change in structure, you need to be able to present that to the authorities, whether that's corporate, whether that's a trust, whether that's an individual, but you need to be ready to be able to present that and obviously provide the relevant documents alongside.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as you said, there's PRO services, there's dealing with the government, there's license renewals, visa management, all of that. I mean, what value would a client have just having a single partner that could provide all of that and take care of that?
Yeah, well, it'd save a lot of time, a lot of stress. But I think the main thing for clients to keep in mind is that we can interact on their behalf with any government organization or third party and just ensure that, something's done properly. It's the worst feeling in the world when you're not sure if something's going to work out or if something isn't correct, is going to go wrong. It's that peace of mind. That's the real value of working with EER Middle East.
Yeah. And, maybe without naming names, and from your own experience, do you have an example where, the UAE really has genuinely enabled a company to grow rapidly and see great success?
Yeah, look, recently, there's lots of examples, but recently, a friend of mine, marketing agency in London, he actually came out in the summer, which wasn't a good time. It was very hot. He came out with his wife, and they were actually considering a couple of different countries, not just UAE, also some countries in Europe, Spain, I think, and Portugal. And so they hadn't made a decision. And for whatever reason, they decided to go with the UAE. They were thinking that maybe 1 or 2 years, they would have enough revenue, let's say, to then relocate and, bring the family, because obviously, they weighed up, cost of living in UAE and school fees and things like that, a young family, and they just wasn't sure whether it could be done right now or it was a year or two down the line.
Yeah.
Within 3 months of setup, signed a contract, big corporate, they're now doing all their marketing countrywide, there's discussions regionally, and that one customer for them has enabled them to all relocate within 3 months. And their business is already comparable to what they had in the UK, which took, 4 or 5 years to build up. So,
and they've achieved that in the 6 months since the
yeah,
summer.
yeah. I wouldn't say that's obviously every case, but
No.
for them and to see them and know them personally, it's a really good example, and yeah, it makes you smile that you help them along.
Yeah. And, what are the biggest misconceptions maybe you see that people have when they are expanding into the UAE?
I think one would be that everyone drives a supercar. I certainly don't. I've got
I don't either.
an old beat-up sedan.
Yeah.
So look, there are lots of normal people here that relocate. It's really is an opportunity for people all over the world to come and either to work or to set up a business. But in terms of corporate services, I'd say, foreign ownership still. I still get a lot of inquiries. People assume that they need to engage in a joint venture, whether that's through shareholding or contractual obligations with a local, with an Emirati. Like I said earlier, it's very rare. It does happen. I've structured many businesses like that also, but we're talking about maybe 5, maybe 10%, if that, is the case in 2025. So you just have the full control. And once you open a business, really the world's your oyster here. You can, invoice clients around the world. You can sponsor your dependents. You can move your family here. You can, own assets. It's really your ticket, your gateway to, doing business in the Middle East and across the world.
And, in your experience, do you find that people maybe underestimate the complexity of setting up here, or even overestimate the cost, underestimate the cost? How do they
I would say only recently. With things like ChatGPT, I get a lot of, client calls and they start logging in and saying, "Oh, ChatGPT told me that," and I said, "Well, definitely don't listen to that because I don't know where you'll be in a few months' time." So I think it's good that these jurisdictions become digital. Information is out there. However, just be aware that it's not always up to date. It's not always correct. Again, like any other country, translation is not always perfect science.
Yep.
So, I would just say cut through that. The shortcut is to work with a reputable provider.
Yeah, and I guess it depends on the complexity as well around your business.
And
what it is you're trying to do and set up.
Some things are going to feel almost like for like in your home country. Some of the processing, some of the questions, some of the application, but ultimately you need to have a holistic approach and you need to look at everything. And so company formation is linked to visa is linked to banking. If one thing goes wrong, it could all fall down. It is like dominoes. So it's that piece where you're not going to get that advice through a ChatGPT or a website. You're always better off, I believe, dealing with humans.
Okay. So on that then, what advice would you give to somebody, whether it's a corporate or an individual looking to relocate and establish a business here, before they get here? What's the advice you would give them?
I would say please call Brad Williams from EER Middle East.
Nice plug.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, but I mean, I think it is essential to speak to some, because as you say, with so many different jurisdictions, with the complexity, you need that expert.
Yeah, I think as well, there's a lot of value in, life outside of the corporate sphere. I mean, isn't it nice to be able to ask someone, okay, what should I think about when I get off the plane? What should I think about in terms of where am I going to live? Where am I going to go to the gym? So there's just lots of value in understanding kind of what's your lifestyle going to be, because for many people that is the big motivation to move here. I mean, of course, you can operate a business remotely. You can come to Dubai one day a year and still make your business what you want it to be. But for most people, at least, they're going to spend some time here. And good to kind of get to grips with, what's my lifestyle going to look like when I change through this procedure.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up today's conversation on how the UAE helps businesses to grow. So whether through strategic jurisdiction choices or streamlined setup processes, strong compliance frameworks, or ongoing corporate services support. So a huge thank you to my colleague Brad for sharing his insights with us today. If you're considering starting or expanding your business in the UAE, understanding the landscape is essential, and having the right partner will make all the difference. So to learn more about how EER Middle East can support you, we'd love to hear from you. And you can get in touch with us through our website, which is eerme.com, or by contacting us on email at info@eerme.com. Thank you.